Something that has always puzzled me about the show is the choice of Jon's Targaryen name. Now, on the surface, Aegon seems perfectly fine, but once you start to begin to break it down, there are many glaring problems with this choice, and why I think Jon's true name in the book will be something very different than Aegon Targaryen. For me, there are two key problems with calling Jon Aegon. The biggest is the fact that his older half-brother was also called Aegon. It would seem very odd for Rhaegar to call his second son the same name as his first. I'm not exactly sure how Lyanna would feel about naming her son the same name as her husband's other wife. There are a couple of reasons why I think the show might have chosen this path. Firstly, I think they gave him the name of Aegon due to the young Griff storyline not making it into the show. I think it could be possible that some of the story beats given to Jon are actually those of young Griff, aka his older brother, or a Blackfrye pretender, depending on what theories you believe. I also think it's possible that with Aegon not being in the show, they could have just given Jon that name, as it's very recognised as a Targaryen name. Now, before I talk about what I think Jon's true name is in the books, we should also consider the idea it may actually be Aegon, however unlikely I think it is. There are some scenarios where Jon having this name could make sense. For instance, it's possible that Lyanna was informed of the sack of King's Landing and Aegon's murder before her death, and gave Jon the name Aegon as a form of tribute. I still find ideas such as this unlikely. Now, to come up with some ideas for Jon's true name, the best place to start is to go back to the core reason Rhaegar ran off with Lyanna in the first place. Well, other than love. Because Elia Martell, his wife, could not have any more children, Rhaegar would not be able to have the third child he wanted so badly in order to fulfill the prophecy of the prince that was promised. As Dany saw in the House of the Undying in A Clash of Kings, Rhaegar believed that the dragon must have 3 heads. This refers to Aegon the Conqueror and his sister wives, Visenya and Rhaenys. Now, it's clear from what he named his children by Elia Martell that Rhaegar was trying to recreate this trinity. He named his daughter Rhaenys and his son Aegon. This leaves the name Visenya for Jon. Now, this ties into another theory that Rhaegar was actually expecting his child by Lyanna to be a girl, with the intent of naming her Visenya, but as we know, this was not to be, as his child was a boy. So looking at all of this, and the naming convention Rhaegar was going for, I think a good shout for Jon's true name could have been Viserys, the male denomination of Visenya. For me, I think this is most likely if his name is not Aegon. There are still some holes in this idea. Rhaegar was not at Jon's birth and died before he was born, and it's not clear how informed Lyanna was of his plan and the idea of the dragon having 3 heads. So, if she was not in on the plan, it's very convenient she chose this name. I'm fairly confident of the idea of Viserys. However, there are some other great options and fan theories that also have some great evidence behind them. A popular idea is it could be Jaehaerys. There isn't a ton of evidence in the text for this. However, if you look who Jon is and his characteristics, he shares a lot in common in his personality and way of ruling with Jaehaerys the Conciliator, but that's the true extent of this theory. I have also seen some people say that it's the closest Targaryen name to Jon, but I personally don't see this. So other than that, and perhaps sharing some ruling styles and characteristics, I think this one might be a bit of a stretch, but again, it wouldn't surprise me. Another idea I like, and I think there's a lot more evidence for it, is Jon's name being Aemon. The first evidence I started to see for this is the close relationship between Rhaegar and Aemon. It's possible that Rhaegar would have wanted to name his son after him. There's also Jon's own relationship with Maester Aemon to consider, with Jon looking up to him greatly, with his advice to Jon helping him grow into the person he is and will become. For example, Aemon's conversation with Jon regarding the idea that love is the death of duty. So, in a way, it'd be fitting if Jon shared the name of someone so influential to him. Also, if you believe the ending of the show will play out the same for Jon in the book, then there is a parallel of Maester Aemon going to the wall and Jon's ending, giving a little bit more weight to the idea. For the record, I do think the ending in the book in broad strokes will be similar, but I'm of the view so much is different it's hard for it to be as close to the show as a lot of people think. It should also be noted that one of Jon's favourite historical figures is Aemon the Dragon Knight, and when he played with Robb as a child in the yard at Winterfell, he would pretend to be him. So when he shouts, "I'm Prince Aemon," when playing with Robb, if his name is in fact actually Aemon, then strictly speaking, it's a true statement. So Jon having this name would have a great personal significance to him. Out of the 3 names I've talked about, I would put my money on Jon's true name being Viserys over Aegon in the book. However, a good case can also be made for Aemon as well. I understand why Jaehaerys is a popular choice and can see the mirrors, but for me it does not have the same amount of evidence as Viserys and Aemon. Here's the thing about Jon's true name and just something to think about. In the end, we already know what it is. His true name is Jon Snow, and finding out the truth about his lineage won't change that.